The waitress took care of an unknown elderly woman during the storm, and the lady saw her as the perfect wife for her billionaire son. Today, we're going to meet Claire and Nathaniel, two different worlds brought together by a storm. If you love fun and moving stories, go ahead and leave your like. Your support really helps our channel grow and bring more content like this. Claire Dawson held the tray with one hand and the diner door frame with the other, while the wind howled outside. The rain hammered the glass door with force. "Frank, are you sure this place isn't going to fly away?" Claire shouted over the noise, adjusting her apron stained with coffee and ketchup. From the back of the kitchen, a hoarse and irritated voice replied, "If it flies away, I'm going with it, and I'll finally get a decent vacation." Claire rolled her eyes. Frank Miller was in his early 60s, had the temperament of a grumpy bear, and zero patience for storms, complaining customers, or anything that interrupted his routine of grilling hamburgers in peace. But that night in Madison, Wisconsin, was far from an ordinary night. The storm had arrived without warning. The small roadside diner where Claire worked was running only on the emergency generator, which made a constant and irritating noise, as if it were complaining about the extra effort. The radio in the kitchen crackled between static and bad news. "Attention, residents of Madison and surrounding areas. All main roads are blocked due to flooding and fallen trees. Authorities recommend that no one leave their homes until further notice." Claire sighed and looked around. The diner was packed with stranded people, nervous and clearly not knowing what to do. "Folks, I know the situation isn't easy," Claire said loudly, forcing a smile. "But while you're here, I'll make sure nobody goes without hot coffee and apple pie." "Deal?" One of the truck drivers grumbled something that sounded like a thank you, but Claire pretended it was a warm compliment. She was about to go back to the kitchen when the diner door opened violently. The wind rushed in strong, knocking down napkins, making the plastic menus fly. And then Claire saw. Two figures came in together, fighting against the force of the wind. A tall man in a dark gray suit, completely soaked, was practically carrying an elderly woman by one arm. She was visibly shaking, her gray hair stuck to her face, her elegant clothes completely ruined by the rain. He wasn't much better off, with dark hair dripping water and an expression of tension on his face. For a second, nobody moved. The woman looked around, disoriented, and then her eyes met Claire's. "Please," the man said, his deep voice cutting through the noise of the storm. "She needs help." Claire didn't think twice. She crossed the diner in 3 long strides, took the woman by the other arm, and together they guided her to the nearest table before the door slammed again with a bang. It's okay. You're safe now," Claire said, helping the elderly woman sit down. "Frank, I need towels now." "Do I look like a luxury hotel?" Frank yelled back, but Claire heard the sound of drawers being opened in a hurry. The woman sat down slowly, still shaking. The man remained standing beside her, his hand on her shoulder in a protective gesture. Claire took off her own wool coat that was hanging behind the counter and placed it over the elderly woman's shoulders. "Take a deep breath. You're fine. You're in a safe place," Claire said, kneeling beside the chair to be at eye level with the woman. "What's your name?" The elderly woman blinked a few times as if she were coming back to reality. "Rosemary," she answered with a weak voice. "Rosemary Caldwell." "Nice to meet you, Rosemary. I'm Claire, and you just walked into the best storm shelter in all of Madison," Claire said with a wide smile. "The food is questionable, but the service is impeccable." Rosemary let out a weak laugh, which sounded half tearful. Claire then looked at the man. Up close, she could see he was younger than he had seemed at first glance, probably in his 30s. His face had strong features, a defined jaw, and eyes of a grayish blue that seemed to assess everything around with calculated precision. Even soaked and clearly tense, there was something about him that radiated authority. "And you, sir?" Claire asked. "Do you need towels too?" "I'm fine," he said dryly. "Take care of her first." Frank appeared with a stack of clean towels and threw them on the table without ceremony. "Here, and don't expect special treatment because I'm not in the mood." "Frank, your kindness touches me," Claire said, taking one of the towels and starting to dry Rosemary's hair carefully. She threw another towel to the man, who caught it in the air with quick reflexes. "You can use this one. You're dripping on my floor." He raised an eyebrow, clearly not used to receiving orders, but started drying his face and hair without commenting. Rosemary looked at Claire with an expression of genuine surprise. "You don't even know us. Why are you doing this?" Claire stopped for a second, thoughtful, and then shrugged. "Because you clearly need help. And because, honestly, this night is already a mess anyway. 2 more people won't make a difference," she said, winking. "Besides, you both look too elegant for someone who was walking under all that rain. What happened?" The man opened his mouth to answer, but Rosemary was faster. "Our car broke down. In the middle of the road. We tried to walk until we found help, but the storm got much worse very quickly." "But the storm of the century decided to show up precisely today," Claire completed, shaking her head. "Welcome to the Unlucky Club." Rosemary really smiled this time. "You're very kind." "No, I'm just practical," Claire said, standing up. "Now let's solve this properly. First, hot coffee for both of you. Second, something hot to eat. Third, dry clothes for her. I have an old sweatshirt in my locker that will fit perfectly. It's not high fashion, but it's warm." "I don't want to be a bother," Rosemary began. "Rosemary, you're shaking like a leaf. It's not a bother. It's a basic necessity," Claire said firmly. She looked at the man. "And you, sir, will you accept coffee?" "Please," he said, and there was something almost surprised in his voice, as if he weren't used to being treated so naturally. "Great. Stay put there, and I'll be right back." While Claire ran to get dry clothes and prepare a tray with coffee and food, the man sat in the chair next to Rosemary. "How are you feeling?" he asked quietly. "Better," Rosemary answered, watching Claire move through the diner with efficiency. "She's special. She's a waitress." "Nathaniel," Rosemary said, in a tone of gentle reproach, "not everyone in the world is defined only by the position they hold." Nathaniel didn't respond, but his eyes followed Claire as she prepared the coffee with quick and precise movements. The other customers in the diner watched the scene with curiosity. The elderly couple exchanged approving looks. One of the truck drivers murmured something about good people still existing, and the mother of the children smiled for the first time that night. When Claire came back with 2 steaming mugs of coffee and a gray hooded sweatshirt, sweatpants, and a pair of thick socks, she placed everything on the table with a smile. "Coffee first. Then you change clothes," she instructed Rosemary. "Bathroom is back there. Bring those wet clothes back and I'll put them to dry near the generator." Rosemary took the mug with both hands, absorbing the warmth, and took a long sip. "This is wonderful." "House secret. Cinnamon in the filter," Claire said, winking. Nathaniel took a sip of his own coffee and seemed genuinely surprised. "This is really very good." "You don't need to look so shocked," Claire joked. "We may be a roadside diner, but our coffee is serious." Rosemary exchanged an amused look with Nathaniel and stood up slowly. "I'm going to change. I'll be right back." When she walked away, Claire began collecting the wet towels. Nathaniel watched her in silence, and she could feel the weight of his gaze on her back. "Have you worked here long?" he asked suddenly. Claire turned around, surprised by the question. 3 years. "Why?" "Curiosity," he said, but there was something calculated in the way he studied her. "Well, if you're trying to figure out if I'm trustworthy enough to take care of your—" Claire hesitated, realizing she didn't know what the relationship between them was. "Sorry, what is she to you? Grandmother? Aunt?" "She's my mother," Nathaniel said. Claire blinked, surprised. "Really? You don't look much alike." "I took after my father more." "I see," Claire said, although she didn't understand anything about the strange dynamic between the two. "Well, you can relax. Your mother is in good hands. I'm not a serial killer disguised as a waitress." The corner of Nathaniel's mouth curved slightly. "That's exactly what a serial killer would say." Claire let out a genuine laugh. "Touché, but if I wanted to victimize someone, I'd choose a night with fewer witnesses." Nathaniel looked around the crowded diner and nodded. "Valid point." The radio crackled again. "Attention. Weather conditions have worsened significantly. No roads will be passable until at least 6 in the morning. Repeating, no one should attempt to leave until dawn." Claire and Nathaniel exchanged glances. "Looks like you're going to be here for quite a while," Claire said. "It looks that way," Nathaniel replied, and for the first time, he seemed genuinely uncomfortable. 10 minutes later, Rosemary returned wearing the sweatsuit, which was too loose, but infinitely more comfortable. Her gray hair was dry and pulled back in a makeshift bun. She looked like a different person. Claire placed in front of her a bowl of vegetable soup and a generous piece of apple pie. Eat. No discussion. And me? Nathaniel asked, and there was a touch of humor in his voice. You look well fed. She looked like she was about to faint. Claire retorted, but she was smiling. But I can bring a sandwich if you want. Please. While Claire went to get the food, Rosemary leaned toward Nathaniel. I like her. You like everyone. That's not true. I don't like Henderson from the board or that boring woman from the golf club. Nathaniel almost smiled. She's different, Rosemary continued, watching Claire briefly chat with the elderly couple before returning with the sandwich. There's something special about her. She's a waitress at a roadside diner, Mother. And you're an executive who doesn't know the last time you had a genuine conversation with someone who didn't want anything from you. Rosemary gently retorted. Which one of you is really living? Nathaniel had no answer for that. The clock on the diner wall showed 11:30 at night, when the last hope that the storm would pass soon died completely. The generator coughed like a man with the flu. The windows shook with each gust of wind, and Frank was seriously considering sleeping on top of the stove because it was the only warm place in the kitchen. Claire observed the chaos around her with crossed arms and an expression that mixed tiredness with comic resignation. The elderly couple had turned 2 counter stools into makeshift beds, using coats as pillows. The 3 truck drivers were snoring in different chairs, each in a stranger position than the other. One of them was practically hanging backwards, with his mouth open, looking like a bizarre statue. The young mother had managed to put the 2 children to sleep under a table, covered with clean towels, and now rested beside them, with her head resting on her own purse. It was a scene worthy of a very, very strange Renaissance painting. This place looks like a refugee shelter, Frank grumbled, appearing beside Claire with a coffee mug in his hand. Technically it is, Claire replied, yawning. Refugees from a crazy storm. I should charge for lodging. Frank, you should charge less for the food, but here we are. He snorted, but Claire saw the corner of his mouth curving into an almost smile. Rosemary was sitting at one of the corner tables, watching everything with an amused expression. Nathaniel was beside her, but his eyes were heavy with tiredness, although he clearly fought against sleep. Claire walked over to them and sat down in the chair across from them with a dramatic sigh. Welcome to Madison's 5-star hotel, she said, gesturing to the chaotic environment. As you can see, our accommodations are top-notch. Rosemary laughed softly. I've stayed in much worse places, believe me. Really? Claire raised an eyebrow. You seem like the type of person who frequents sophisticated establishments and hotels with French names. Appearances deceive, Rosemary said with a mischievous gleam in her eyes. I grew up on a farm in rural Iowa. I've slept in a barn, I've bathed with ice-cold well water, and I've eaten canned beans for an entire week. Claire blinked, surprised. Wait, you? On a farm? Yes, me. Why the surprise? Because you have the posture of a British queen and speak as if you studied at Oxford. Rosemary laughed out loud, and the sound was genuine and contagious. Dear, life teaches many things, and one of them is that you can leave the farm, but the farm never completely leaves you. Nathaniel watched the exchange in silence, and there was something in his expression that Claire couldn't decipher. Surprise, perhaps, or curiosity. And you, Nathaniel? Claire asked, turning to him. Did you also grow up on a farm? No, he said dryly. I grew up in Chicago. Urban environment, then. That explains the suit. What about my suit? Nothing, just that it seems very uncomfortable to wear during a storm. Rosemary laughed again, and Nathaniel cast a slightly irritated look at his mother. She has a point, Rosemary said. You could have chosen something more casual for dinner. It was a business meeting, Mother, not a picnic. Claire raised her eyebrows. Business meeting at 8 at night? My son doesn't know the concept of business hours, Rosemary said with a dramatic sigh. For him, work is a religion, and the office is the church. Mother, Nathaniel said in a warning tone. What? It's true. Claire observed the dynamic between the two with growing interest. There was love there, clearly, but also a subtle tension, as if they spoke slightly different languages. And you, Claire? Rosemary asked, changing the subject. How did a smart young woman full of energy end up in a diner in the middle of nowhere? Claire shrugged. Long story. Short version, plans changed, money ran out, life happened. And the long version? Nathaniel asked, and there was genuine curiosity in his voice. Claire hesitated for a moment. I was going to college. I got a partial scholarship, worked 2 jobs to pay for the rest. My mother got sick. I came back to take care of her. She got better, but the bills didn't stop coming. And here I am, 3 years later, still serving coffee and pretending I have my life under control. Rosemary frowned slightly. You didn't go back to college? Not yet, but I will, eventually. When the universe stops throwing me curveballs, Claire said, forcing a smile. Besides, the tips here are great. I made $12.35 yesterday. Nathaniel didn't laugh. Instead, he studied her with an intensity that made Claire feel exposed. What did you want to study? He asked. Business administration, with a focus on nonprofit management. Why? Claire blinked, surprised by the direct question. Because I want to make a difference, and because I believe the best changes happen when competent people manage resources efficiently for causes that matter. Rosemary smiled, and there was something almost proud in her expression. You're special, Claire Dawson. You two keep saying that, but I'm still waiting for the part where you reveal you're secret recruiters for some strange organization, Claire joked. Nathaniel and Rosemary exchanged a look that Claire couldn't interpret. That's when Claire looked around again and realized the reality of the situation. Rosemary, where are you going to sleep? The elderly woman blinked. Well, I thought maybe I could stay right here, in a chair. No way, Claire said, standing up quickly. You're not going to spend the night in an uncomfortable diner chair. I have an apartment right upstairs. It's small, but it has a decent couch. You can stay there. And Nathaniel? Rosemary asked. Claire looked at him. Nathaniel was visibly exhausted, his eyes red from tiredness, but still maintained his rigid posture. He looks capable of surviving in a chair, Claire said. Besides, my apartment is tiny. There wouldn't be room for both. I'll be fine here, Nathaniel said, and there was something almost defensive in his voice. Are you sure? Rosemary asked, worried. I am. Go rest, Mother. You need it more than I do. Rosemary hesitated, but the exhaustion was evident in her eyes. All right, but if you need anything, I know where to find you. Claire went to the counter, took a key hanging from a hook, and gestured for Rosemary to follow. Let's go, before Frank realizes I'm abandoning ship. Before leaving, Rosemary leaned over and kissed Nathaniel's forehead. Get some sleep, dear. The world won't end if you rest for a few hours. Nathaniel didn't respond, but something in his expression softened slightly. Claire guided Rosemary to the narrow stairs at the back of the diner that led to the small apartment. It was a modest space, a living room with a couch and makeshift bookshelf, a tiny kitchen that looked more like a closet with a stove, and a door that led to the bedroom. Rosemary entered and looked around with genuine interest. The first thing that caught her attention was the number of books. They were stacked everywhere possible, on the bookshelf, on the floor, on the coffee table, even on top of the refrigerator. You like to read, Rosemary observed. I do. It's my way of traveling without leaving the place, Claire said, taking some pillows from the couch and arranging them more comfortably. Sorry about the mess. I wasn't expecting visitors. It's perfect, Rosemary said sincerely. She walked to the bookshelf and ran her fingers over the spines of the books. There was everything. Literary classics, novels, philosophy books, even some on business and economics. You're eclectic, Rosemary commented. I read whatever falls into my hands. The public library is my best friend. Rosemary turned around and smiled. Thank you, Claire. Really? Stop thanking me. It's getting embarrassing. They sat on the couch, and Rosemary looked out the small window of the apartment. The rain continued relentlessly. You know, I should be worried right now, Rosemary said thoughtfully. Stranded, far from home without proper communication. But strangely, I feel good. It must be the charm of the old sweatshirt, Claire joked. Maybe. Or maybe it's the company. And they talked for hours. Rosemary asked questions about Claire's life, about her dreams, about what she would like to do if she could do anything in the world. Claire, in turn, asked about Rosemary's life, about her experiences, about how she saw the world. If you could have dinner with anyone, living or dead, Who would it be? Rosemary asked. That's easy. Eleanor Roosevelt, Claire answered without hesitation. Rosemary raised her eyebrows, impressed. Why? Because she was incredible. She fought for human rights, redefined the role of First Lady, and did it all while dealing with a complicated marriage and absurd social pressures. She's my hero. Excellent choice, Rosemary said with genuine approval. Meanwhile, at the diner, Nathaniel tried to find a comfortable position in a chair that clearly wasn't designed for sleeping. He observed the other storm refugees. The truck drivers snored in off-key harmony. The elderly couple slept embraced. The young mother had one of the children nestled in her arms. Ordinary people. Ordinary lives. And an extraordinary waitress who treated everyone with the same genuine kindness, without knowing or caring who they were or what they owned. Nathaniel closed his eyes and, for the first time in years, slept without dreaming about spreadsheets and meetings. The smell of fresh coffee invaded Claire's room before the alarm clock even went off. She opened her eyes slowly, confused, and lay there for a few seconds, trying to understand why her apartment smelled like a professional coffee shop. Then the memory of the previous night came back. The storm, the soaked pear, the makeshift couch. Rosemary. Claire jumped out of bed, wearing only an old t-shirt from a charity race she never participated in and pajama pants with a kitten print, and ran to the